We're going to start in just a minute.
What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Trish Wright, and welcome to the Awakening World. And tonight, our guests are you. You're our guests tonight. We are the halfway point of the year, and time to make some big decisions. And so tonight we want to hear from you. We want to interact with you, and I see Trish just left, so I'll put the full spotlight on myself. And want to get your feedback because it's time to make some big decisions. She's coming back in a moment, I'm sure. Anyway, welcome.
I'm just here.
Really want to encourage everybody to turn their cameras on tonight. There she is. Bring her back on. So that we can talk with you, hear from you, kind of review. We will take a look at some of what's taken place in the past 6 months of the Awakening World, in the past 2 years that we've been doing shows on Friday night. Of course, it was called Straight Talk for a long time. And we've got decisions to make about where we're going to go in the future. I recognize that I really appreciate all of you that have been really regulars. You've been coming every week. And also I recognize a lot of people are zoomed out and want to be out. They want to go to festivals and restaurants and clubs and parks and movies and all those things. So we definitely want to hear from you tonight. I also have got a request from Mary Noonan to talk about what happened today with the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. So I certainly don't want to make the whole show about that, but I will turn it over to my co-host Trish for her thoughts, and certainly welcome any thoughts from any of you, because again, you're our guests. Tonight, it's you. I'm going to go to gallery view for a moment. It's you. You're our guests tonight. So Trish, what comes up for you when you saw Roe versus Wade getting overturned?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, as you might assume. Being socialized as female, having a vagina myself and a uterus and ovaries. But this is also coming from a privileged white male perspective, and that some of the people that are really touched by this are marginalized communities, minorities. Like these are the people who are deeply harmed by this, and this has been going on for a long time. Forced sterilization in the country has been going on for a long time, as well as forced births in low income communities. So I'm both devastated in some ways and also not surprised in others. When I sit back and I look at it from so there's a me perspective that's like, how does this impact me? And then I come back out, how does this impact my community? And then I move back out into how does this impact the state, the nation, and the rest of the world? Like I'm looking at it from a lot of different perspectives when I draw myself from the inner fear and just uncertainty and unsafety that having people who don't know me make decisions about what I can and can't do with my body. When I move back from that and I start to see the impact of what that looks like on a national level, and the people that I don't know that it harms, and the people that don't look like me that it harms, and takes even more rights away from them, I feel deeply sad and frustrated, and I have anger, and I have it, and it's based in fear. I have a lot of fear for the people that I love that I don't know. And when I take another step back, which is something you've taught me, is to really look at what these social justices are, what our SCOTUS is actually thinking. Like when I take a step back and I lean back into compassion for them, and I look at their values and their wants and needs, and I'm, because I'm coming from a place of wanting to understand and wanting more compassion for everyone in the world, I look back and I lean back into the, as Suzik calls it, the like one of my teachers, she's like, lean back into this place of the great knowing, the great, like there's a big lean back that'll hold you. And when I lean back into that, and from that perspective, finding compassion for these men who are coming from a very different perspective in the world. They're coming from a place of fear. They're coming from a place of uncertainty as well. We are in 2022, and queer LGBTQIA plus communities and marginalized communities and women are rising to have more voice. And that's got to be terrifying for people who have been used to the patriarchal approach of control. So I have a lot of compassion for their fear and what they're fighting for. I don't agree, because I think that more freedoms for more people and protections for more people to be fully alive and authentic with themselves is a more loving approach. And I also understand it. So those are my thoughts, my initial thoughts, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate your ability to be compassionate for the other side. For me, right away, there's an article of the 13 states that will immediately ban abortion. And so I opened up that, page and saw the map. And I just imagined all the impoverished women in this huge red chunk of the country, spanning Texas, Louisiana, all the way into Florida. And I just pictured young girls, 15, 16, 17, some of them impregnated by their uncle or stepfather, that are going to have nowhere to go. And that's what breaks my heart. That's what really breaks my heart.
Just to answer the question in the comments, is that Roe versus Wade was the I want to say 1979, but I don't know if that's exactly right. In the 70s, that Roe versus Wade constitutionally gave women the right to have access to abortion. And what the Supreme Court chose today was to recall 1973. Thank you. Was to repeal that and now give it to the states to decide. There is already like a list of states that are going to just like instantly ban abortions, and then in the next, like immediately, and then there's going to be another list of, maybe there's like a 7 list and then another 5 list that's going to happen in about 2 weeks. But each state will now have choice. So there's a lot of, like, you've probably seen it on your Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, whatever your platform is, you've probably seen a lot of things come out around, hey, you can go, come to my house if you're going to go camping, or if you want an abortion in the state that I allow, you can come to visit your auntie or your uncle or your friend. Like there's a lot of states that are keeping that, which California is one of those states that is protecting the right to abortion. So there's that.
Yeah.
I think that this comes back down to, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Trish. Go ahead.
So you had a vision in mind for this show. And this actually is part of the vision of this show tonight, is that we've had a lot of shows on social and racial justice. And we've been doing the work that we can to do to, we'll call it, deconstruct the systems of harm within this show. And that's part of them. This is, this idea that women are not as human as men, that when you start to delayer the human rights of an individual or a group of people, it's part of these systems of oppression. And that's one of the things that Scott really wanted to show you tonight, again, is some of the reruns from Brig Feltus and Sharif Abdullah and Lucian, what's his last name? Can you just tell me his last name, Scott?
Lucian Tarnowski.
Lucian Tarnowski. And really what these beautiful people are saying were really that coming from a place of love is what's going to change the world. And love meaning compassion, love meaning empathy, love meaning, and when I say that compassion and empathy, this is not a bypass for harmful behavior. Mm-hmm. You can't fight violence with violence without participating in the same systems. Now, you can have your feelings of anger, and I invite you to fucking grieve. Sorry. I invite you to be angry. I invite you to protest. I invite you to do the things that you want to do that feel right in your body, to show your support in the injustices that you see. And I also invite you to really find compassion, because those are people too, making decisions out of their wants and needs. Maybe you don't understand them, but they are basic human wants and needs that those human beings are intending to get met.
Yeah. We've done several shows, Trish, on reducing polarization. And that's one of the other things that I'm really concerned about. We polarized over blue versus red, Trump versus Biden. We polarized over social distancing, masks or no masks, vaccine or no vaccine. And now there's going to be such a huge polarization of pro-life versus pro-choice. Just recognizing those are the terms that each camp uses. And what I'm appreciating about what Trish is saying is that it is important for us to be passionate and strong and for our voices to be heard. and to do our best to attempt not to villainize or make enemy images out of people that are on the other side of this. I'm imagining that probably most of us watching this show are pro-choice, although maybe some people are in the camp that believe that Roe versus Wade should be overturned. And if you are watching and you are in that camp, I honor you, I respect you. I don't agree with that opinion, but I respect your right to have that opinion. And I respect that there's an underlying desire to protect life. And that's a beautiful thing. And so it's difficult. I'm going to read some of the comments coming in because I really do want to include everybody tonight.
Can I just, before you do that, can I read, before you read, give me 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I invite you just for a second to replace, when you're thinking about it in the world, replace the words villainize or polarize with dehumanize. Because when you make a person an enemy, when you make them an other, then you're actually choosing the places inside of your brain and your body to dehumanize them, which is literally creating the same system, right? This is part of that. So when you make someone an enemy, when you make someone a victim or a perpetrator or a rescuer, like it happens to be, you put them outside of yourself. Because remember, when we're polarizing, we're creating more separation. Okay, now read them away. Thanks for letting me rant.
No, yeah, thank you. I mean, and that's such a big part of our message, is not to dehumanize people. One of the things I was just teaching in my class last week is not to assign enemy images to people that we disagree with, not to use words like asshole, idiot, bitch, because when we do that, like Trish said, we're dehumanizing that person. We can disagree with their choice.
Ourselves too.
And ourselves too, that's right. Not, calling ourselves those things. I want to welcome, I'm really glad that Reverend Deborah Moldow has joined us. And maybe, Deb, let me know if you want to come on camera and share some thoughts. So here are some wonderful thoughts from our viewers on the whole Roe versus Wade part. Mary Noonan writes, those two justices that said under oath that Roe to them was settled law lied. Yeah, that doesn't meet one's value for honesty. George Noble reminds us kindness is acceptance of what is, instead of should have been what is. Eleanor Joy writes, and this is true, I'm very concerned about this, Joy, Eleanor. She writes, and I understand that things like gay marriages and more are also going to be up for grabs. Yeah, there's a lot of concern that this conservative court is going to really make it harder for there to be gay marriage, transgender acceptance in our world. Julia writes, is love a conditional decision, or is it an unconditional emotional space? I'll let you ponder that, and after I read the comments, we'll come back to you to answer that, Trish. That will be a Trish answer. Susan Bloomquist writes, maybe this is a time to address the entire healthcare issue. Many suffer from a healthcare system which fails to serve. Yes, Susan, I agree with you. Eleanor writes, and Canada is definitely not out of the woods on these issues now that things have changed in the United States. All right, Trish, what is your thought about Julia's excellent question?
Ooh, I love this question because I ponder this a lot. I believe that love is unconditional. Acceptance of someone's behavior is not unconditional. That how we choose to, like, I can love Scott. And let me give you a real life example. I lived with a man for many years where we were in an abusive relationship, where I was emotionally abusive and he was physically abusive. we both still love each other. There were good moments. There were things that I loved about him. I loved some of the aspects of the way that I felt with him. I loved some of our healthy dynamic spaces. I will always love that human as a human. I even see the strategies, his strategies to get his needs met. My strategies were really poor. I will always love him unconditionally for him just being him. I will not tolerate being in proximity to that level of treatment anymore. So I believe that love is unconditional, but that connection and behavior and like there's a lot of value connections and those types of things. That's all human condition. You want to say more?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that there are many, 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 many forms of love. There's the very rare unconditional love, which I experience from my dog. Most mothers have for their children. There is platonic love, romantic love, fantasy love. There's a lot of different forms of love. For me, the most important form of love is probably compassion, because I'm a teacher of compassionate communication. And most of the great teachers, Jesus, the Buddha, who is the Buddha of compassion, teach compassionate love. Learning to have compassion for all, even if it's our enemy, even if it's someone lesser than us, greater than us, to compassionately seek to understand others is to me the form of love that ideally we all aspire towards. And it's a practice. It's not a light switch you just turn on. It's a daily practice. Right now, can we practice compassionate love for people who are supporting Roe versus Wade being overturned? I want to read some of the comments that came in on Zoom. I'm sorry, on Unify. Theo Grace, who's been on our show, he's a wonderful musical artist and a wise man, writes, obviously choice is important. Obviously life is important. It's tragic that these two core values have been pitted against one another. Really well put, Theo. Thank you. Joyce. Joyce is a little bit more plain spoken. She says it sucks, plain and simple. Abolish the corrupt Supreme Court, partisan, dysfunctional, unjust, manipulative. The Supreme Court is ruined from its original purpose of being just and neutral. And she also points out the irony that this is Pride weekend. And on Sunday, on the Sacred Sunday show, Trish is going to be at a gay pride parade, hopefully tuning in, and we will be sharing the gay pride parade with Trish on Sunday morning as part of the Sacred Sunday show. Trish,
I will be walking. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. I'll be walking at the front of the parade with the ethical non-monogamous people, the very queer ethical non-monogamous people. And we're really gonna see if this is gonna work, you know, when magic happens. You know, I know that we're all really upset right now, and some of us are on one side, other of us are on the other side. Some of us are walking down the street with like middle line. And I'm wondering if you all might just want to take a deep breath with me for a moment, that we all can have a collective breath together. And another, just for the sake of nervous systems. And you know, it's not, gosh, I wish it was surprising to me in some ways, but we're really being pulled in a lot of different directions. This is really where the way that, okay, we're going through a planetary evolutionary shift. It's getting warmer. Things are getting more polarized. This is the practice. We've all been practicing with meditation, with compassionate communication. We've been practicing our love. We've been deeply practicing these things. And this is where we get to actually practice our leveling up practices that we've been doing for a long time. And that means that we get to choose how we show up. And, you know, with all the shows with Antoinette and Padobontan and gosh, every show had an element of this. All the shows with Summer and John Raymer and with the Unity Network and with the Human Convergence, like with all of these shows, every show, I'm gonna say every show has an element of desire for connection, that human beings desires for connection, for community. Did you all see the Matt Kahn show just a couple weeks ago? Talk about how he showed up in balance and unity so that we all can find that weaving. And I think that that's a big driver for all of these decisions, is like safety, security, community, and belonging. These are some pretty hot top values, right? And when I look at how hot people get with their opinions and with their thoughts and what they want to see in the world, and the ways that they think that this might change, who knows, in some ways, and some other ways are just like, hey, how can I have my opinion and still make Scott a human? How can I still have my opinion and make Eleanor or Lily or, you know, Michelle or this other person, how can I still love them for being their human worthy self? And I know that this is hard because it's like, wow, this person, the enemy image of this person doesn't value human life the way that I value human life. But we get to start with the human life right in front of you, with the human life that looks in the mirror as well. It's just going to take a lot of compassion and a lot of self-empathy, Scott.
Yeah. I want to read a couple more comments, again, just want to welcome any of you to share. Lynn wrote, on the realistic side, will these otherwise aborted beings be entering families who are unable to care for them? How will this impact our social systems that are already stretched so thin? George Noble writes, what I understand about this is that we'll see greater polarization out in the open. As Trish said, some states, including California, will be hosting visitors doing a booming out-of-state abortion business. Why be angry? Where's the evidence that some folks should not be opposed to abortion? Holding that belief is why anger arises. Interesting point, George. Thank you. Also, let me know, everybody, if my audio is better. People were complaining about it. I changed my microphone. Deborah Moldau is with us, and she's one of my favorite human beings. She's wise, and she is the leader of the Evolutionary Leaders Network, and she's always got her finger on the pulse of what's going on in our world when it comes to transformation and consciousness. So first of all, thank you, Reverend Deb, for being with us. I know it's 10 o'clock where you are in San Miguel de Allende, so thank you for being with us tonight. And I would love to get your thoughts about this significant event that took place this morning with Roe versus Wade being overturned after 50 years.
Well, thank you for that very warm welcome, Scott. It's a joy to be with you. I'm a little bit of, I have two kind of different feelings about this. I mean, on the one hand, I'm just shocked that the American system seems to be collapsing before our very eyes.
Yeah.
We seem to be not tiptoeing backward, but rushing backward. And it is frightening to think of women with no resources having to travel 3 states over in order not to bring a life into the world that they have no means to care for. And we all understand that this particular legal move will not result in greater child care benefits and help for people to raise these children. So, and it was even more shocking to read about the rest of the agenda and where that might go. It's just, this brings me to the other side of what I'm, what's in my heart today, which is that just a few years back, I think a lot of us had hope that humanity was moving in a certain direction. And that not only were we making material progress, which we've been doing for quite some time, for several hundred years in the Western world, but that we were opening our hearts more to one another, even on a political level. We had elected a Black president in the United States, and things seemed to be moving forward. And then the last few years, there's been such a backlash against all of that progress that I think those of us who saw it as progress had to admit that we're not the only Americans. And that there are many, many other people who see the world a different way than the Global Peace Tribe sees it.
Yeah.
And this to me is frightening on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
I was going to say we live in a democracy. Well, I live in Mexico. And I have to say that when I moved to Mexico 2.5 years ago, I felt a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. And I realized that there's something very so heavy in the zeitgeist in the United States right now. This level of violent disagreement is only one manifestation of that. I think there's an epidemic of despair. I think America has lost any sense of common culture, common values. There's so much polarization and anger. And I really believe that there are so many people who are sitting at home every day with a beer can or a favorite snack next to them in front of a screen that just feeds them what they want to hear, whatever their political orientation is, and that there's just no way to come together as a country. So this decision today, along with the very anemic bill that passed the Senate about gun legislation, it seems to me that was a perfect greenwash, just a way to say, well, we passed legislation to make it better. Well, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't get anywhere near the heart of this devastating problem. So we're in a very, very bad situation. And the only hope that I see really is that I know when I'm in a deep contraction, and I had one recently, so I really know that feeling of everywhere you look, you don't see the hope, you don't see the light. And I know that what brought me out of my contraction was knowing that every time there's a contraction, it's followed by an expansion. And the deeper the contraction, the more potential for a powerful expansion. So I really see the United States right now in fact, the entire planet in a deep, deep, deep contraction. War, pestilence. I mean, we practically see the four horsemen galloping our way, bringing the apocalypse, right? Climate change. But it's also true that this level of awful may be what's needed to catapult us to a future beyond our imagining. And that is my hope and my prayer.
Oh, that's really beautifully stated, Reverend Deb. Thank you. And I'm in a period of big contraction. So as you're saying that, I'm personally hoping that's true, because the last 10 days, I've been the most dysfunctional that I've been in years. I can't remember the last time. I was just exhausted all day long. And, going to the market today and the post office was an adventure, So thank you. May I, and certainly my little itty bitty microcosm life is minuscule compared to the importance of our country and our work.
We're all Hollands
Yeah.
of the one, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I want to quote Marianne Williamson, because she said something I never forgot. I used to go to hear her once in a while at Town Hall in New York City when she was lecturing on the Course in Miracles. And I'll never forget her saying that every crucifixion is followed by a resurrection. But in between, there are 3 days. And those 3 days can be 3 minutes, 3 years, 300 years. We never know. But the resurrection is always going to follow.
That's beautiful, Deb. That's really, really beautiful. Thank you. A few comments. Lily writes, Reverend Deborah, I love your contraction analogy. It's actually like the stock exchange. What goes down will eventually expand and open up and rise again. Julia writes, this is media training, as they've been doing since at least 1970. Are we being hypnotized to keep us from asking the right questions? And she continues, is this a distraction of what our stated purpose of our calling is together? What do you want to see the awakening world to fulfill? Yes, Julia, I do want to get back to that, definitely. Trish, we haven't heard from you for a moment, though. I'd love to get your thoughts and reflections from what Reverend Deb said or what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, I was just pondering on the ebbs and flows, and I fully agree on the expansion and contraction. Like we're birthing, and we've been birthing for a while. If you spend any time researching history, if you just track back some of these experiences that we're having today, and you just start tracking them back, how did we get here? You definitely see these swells and expansions, contractions. You see these moments, and I love that what you shared is an element of, I'm going to use the word faith. I don't use hope, because hope implies that there is none. But faith is the sense of really staying true to love, right? Staying your course towards love. And again, my definition of love is the radical acceptance of what is. So I love that you shared this faith in, this faith in the moment, faith in this, okay, we're going through a contraction. And if you've ever given birth, which I haven't, but I've heard stories that, if the contractions are painful, and you got to breathe, and hopefully you've got people there. And, you know, we're going to see a lot of this happening, and it's going to happen from all different angles. Can we hold the breath, like not hold the breath, but can we hold our community and hold true to faith and love while breathing together in community in this awakening world? Like, we are the people, like, we're building it. We've got to, like, hey, Dad, can I reach out my hand to you? Hey, Scott, are we here? Can we all breathe together? Can we just walk it together? Because this shit's getting crazy, and we're gonna work it out. I don't know how, but I got faith. And you know, I think that, and what I want to say is to bring us back into where the awakening world is going. There is this necessity for us on a planetary level to learn how to regulate our nervous systems, to learn how to be more gentle and caring for ourselves, and to be deeply self-caring and other caring and global caring. You know, Lucian had that whole conversation about how do we think about not just ourselves and how this all works, but how to really globally and even universally think about how the impact. There's a term for it. I can't remember what the terminology was, but it was beautiful. Like this really understanding of that we impact each other, and how do we walk together in more love. The polarization, the more we polarize, the more we're going to get flack back. Like, this is how upsets work. I mean, if you've ever taken Scott's course, you'd probably know that if someone is in a dysregulated nervous system, or if they're angry, or their capacity is low, they'll never be able to hear you. And that really, to come back to connection is really to come back to shared values, to come back to understanding. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said before, is if you think about what the values that are running the show on a political level, I bet if you just look that you might share some of those. And I'm talking about values on a human level, the value for safety, the value for connection, the value for, you know, what it once was felt safer than where we're going now. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Trish, I'm really interested to hear from you how you might envision us coming into that kind of acceptance and when we're so polarized right now. So this new ruling has upped the polarization, yes. Right? It's
oh yeah,
it's even
it's
more
not
now.
Better.
The women are marching in the streets, and you know, we know in some quarters there's equal amounts of celebration. So what's this first step? And I do want to say that in terms of the purpose of the awakening world, I think it is to have these conversations, and it is yes. to the Friday night show is about relationship, and it's not just about relationship.
I fully agree. Thank you. I think so. What I think and what I feel, I know that we're stepping into some really frictiony moments, as I would say. And so I'll tell you a short personal story, and this is how I walk it. My parents and I don't have the same beliefs on a lot of things. Like, I grew up in Montana in a very redneck sort of community. My stepfather was incredibly racist and sexist and said really demeaning things constantly. There are places where my parents and I don't agree on how to behave with each other. And what I come back to every time is, again, coming back to finding something in common. I know that my parents have brain beliefs, like they have socialized beliefs that live here. And those beliefs have feelings attached to them. They were taught what safety looked like. They taught hard work. They taught what purpose was. They were taught how you conformed to gender, to different norms, to these ideals, to Christianity or Catholicism. Like they believed that because that was the way that they could get their needs met. And so when I come back to, like, here's my needs. I have a need for full expression. I have a need for honesty, for peace, for love, compassion, belonging, for empathy. And I come back to, and I think that this is part of why Scott spent his last 20 years teaching compassion. And, Matt Kahn teaches about belonging and compassion and love. And there's all these people teaching on self-love. And, there's hundreds and hundreds of spiritual teachers coming back to this place of, to find the place where the value is the same. My parents have similar values. My parents who are against abortion have similar values. They value human life in this very specific way based on their belief system. And I value human life in another very specific way. And what I do is I never address it angrily this way, because that's violent and abrasive. And I always come through the side door, the olive branch of connection. Hey, I see that this value is up for you, that you value little children. And I totally value little children too. I value human life. I value freedom. I value safety. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Why do you feel that way? And here's the tricky part, because it's like, if I get triggered, then it's my responsibility to take care of that or find community that will help me stay compassionate. So again, I think it's finding that common thread. I think about Brett Kavanaugh a lot, and I think about these Supreme Court justices, and I think about their age and how they were raised and what the world looks like. And I think about, like, I wonder what would touch their hearts. I wonder what they're afraid of. I wonder what they long for in their lives and their families.
That's beautiful.
That is my answer to that.
That's beautiful, and that's true. If we can always drop into what the other person is longing for. Again, what are their values? What is it they long for? Their strategies are what we argue about. Marshall Rosenberg always said that. We don't argue about universal human needs and values. We argue about the strategies. So I want to read, there's so many wonderful comments that have come in. Eleanor Joy writes, I'm deeply grateful for all the loving and wise support that is out there. It's awesome. I also want to acknowledge Mary Noonan. There was a whole little chat that went on. And Mary, I certainly was not making you wrong for being angry. I think that anger is a natural human emotion. Probably my favorite story in the Bible is when Jesus gets pissed off in the temple, when he sees the market and he's like tossing the tables over. It's like, cool. Jesus gets mad. This is good. So anger is a part of the human experience. And anger can be very passionate and can be a powerful force. And of course, it can also be a destructive force. And so I like what Marshall taught me, which is we share our anger for the purpose of being understood. We don't use our anger as a weapon to hurt another person, right? We don't use our anger as an entitlement to be cruel or mean to another person, but we do share our anger for the purpose of being understood. I always like that one very much.
I'd like to bring up something else from the chat that Roger mentioned a while back, because I thought it was really germane to this situation. what he was pointing out was that we are, quote, in a shift from masculine to feminine energy, and the masculine is resisting. So I think this is quite key, especially to this Supreme Court decision, because this is definitely a throwback to men controlling women in a patriarchal society. And I think there is a lot of fear among men around this feeling right now that it is the time of the rise of the divine feminine. And men are being called upon to change how they see themselves, to see themselves as whole beings that encompass both the masculine and the feminine. And, this was never the American image. A man was supposed to be man's man, right? So I think that is a really key element in what we're witnessing right now. And something that Trish said also that struck me, when we talk about looking for common values, we just lost one of our elder evolutionary leaders, Dr. Don Edward Beck. And Don Beck was a champion of a system called spiral dynamics that enabled us to map levels of consciousness, not just in one place, like I'm this color and you're that color, but according to all different questions. So, for instance, when he was helping the government of South Africa to deal with post-apartheid, he needed to find a place where they came together. And it was sports. And if any of you saw the movie Invictus, then you saw how that played out, that they were all sports fans, the blacks and the whites, and they were able to find common ground that helped them to find other common ground. And this is the kind of work that he did, for instance, between the Israelis and the Palestinians as well. And we know there's a long way to go still with that conflict. But it was about finding the commonality. Now, how do we do that? How do we do that with people? And we know the Supreme Court reflects the views of many Americans that banning abortion is saving lives, saving the lives of innocent children. That is a very powerful motivator. Mm-hmm. And those of us who don't believe that a human being is a fully developed entity at conception see it quite differently, and we're concerned about the lives that those children are going to live who are not wanted. Where do we find that common ground, and how do we create a platform where both sides can hear one another?
Good question. I think that's just personal progress and personal process and action. I think it's individual,
But do we have time for that? Do we have time for that? Before climate change creates catastrophe beyond what we're ready to meet,
I don't know. I have no answers here. All I know is that I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna keep moving forward and doing my work. That's all I can do, because I can't just lay down and give up. I know that that's not something that's available. I love that you brought up the masculine and feminine, and not only in the chat, but Deborah. Yeah, I've interviewed probably 25 high-level executives in the last month, men. And what I'm finding is that what they're missing in the world is the conversation of it's I don't know how to be a man. I don't know how to get my needs met anymore. I don't know how, I don't feel myself. I did the thing that they told me to do, and now I don't have what I was supposed to have. So now what?
I think that's what a lot of America is feeling. Not just
People,
men, but
I know that.
They have done their best to live the American dream, and every house has a refrigerator and a television and many cars. So now what?
Yeah, that's the question. No, like, oh crap, now what? And now we're finding ourselves in these positions because they, again, conforming to social norms is a strategy for belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So when the social norms are shifting, when women can abort, or children that they don't want, when the nuclear family, which is the linchpin to capitalism, starts to be removed, the system starts to destabilize. It is phenomenal. I mean, honestly, there's a part of me that's like, wow, this is amazing to be alive right now. Like the sheer just like, wow. And then there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, I'm terrified. And then there's the other part of me that's like, okay, this is what we're here for. Let's keep loving. Can I love them there? Can I love them there? I can love you there. I can open my heart and love you even deeper there. Can I accept you for who you are and humanize you even when I'm wildly repulsed? And I don't know if there's time. I want there to be time.
Well, all we can do is follow what's calling us. And the calling to be a part of the global peace tribe, the calling to have these conversations, the calling to find the love in our hearts for people that we disagree with. There's a wonderful piece in the chat right now from Mark talking about that we're all human and we can't let forces divide and conquer us. We have to stay true to the ideals that are who we are, even as we see the institutions crumbling around us. And maybe it's those very institutions that are standing in the way of us reaching our next level of evolution.
So I totally agree with that. I want to say a couple things. I do believe, and I've really come very much through Trish and then the guests we've had on the show, I've really come to understand that there's just been a phenomenal amount of control by white male power. And I do think that what happened today is an example of that. I do want to celebrate something very old and institutional that worked. And that is the 3 systems of balance in America. Because we had the most powerful man on the planet, President of the United States, doing everything he could to overturn an election result that he didn't like. And the judicial system came through. 60 cases went to court, and whether they were Republican judges, whether they were appointed by Trump, all 60 judges said there's no merit to this case. And for the judicial branch to come through is very cool. And even the Attorney General, brought on by Donald Trump, at some point said, no, this is not happening. This is bullshit. And it's a pretty cool thing that the government, as it was structured, came through. And there wasn't a coup. There wasn't, and I just want to celebrate that thing, because obviously there's a lot of parts to our institutions that are really messed up and need to change. But that's a pretty cool thing that happened. And I just want to acknowledge that. And we're really seeing that with the January 6th committee hearings as we really learn what was taking place. And God bless the heroes who stood up to tremendous pressure and did the honorable thing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Also, in terms of about the awakening world, because people are asking what's going to happen, this is not the very last show. It's the last show of this season. I've been going all the way back to Saturday Night Live. We've always done it in 3-month seasons. And then we start a new subscription every 3 months. honestly, because I've been exhausted, I have not been able to pull it together, to put together shows for July, to put together a new season, to put together all the things that need to happen. I just haven't been able to do it. So what I'm leaning towards is taking most of July off. I am committed to doing a Fantuzzi Rainbow concert on Sunday, July 10th. I might do one or two little Awakening Worlds during the chorus of July just to keep our energy moving. And hopefully in July, I'll be able to then get my energy back, pull it together, and we can decide what we're going to do starting in August, or at the very latest, starting again in September. That's my current thoughts, and I would love people's feedback, including Reverend Deb and my partner, Trish, that I've been doing this show with for 2.5 years. Trish, you have the floor.
God, I don't know how you've done it. Frankly, even at full energy, I would never have had the capacity to do 3 shows a week. I don't know if everybody who listens to this show has a clue how much work goes into creating one, inviting the guests, deciding on the theme, tracking everybody's promotional, creating those beautiful promotional graphics and videos, and then inviting all of your guests.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody else to causes, and oh my God, I bow to you, Scott, what you have done. And the fact that this little bitty virus is laying you low for a while, I think you should take as an invitation for a timeout. And you make it whatever time you need in order to come back, because I know you will. And you'll come back in a way that's powerful, that's inclusive, and that communicates love to everyone who tunes in.
Oh, thank you. That's very full. Thank you. And that is the way I'm holding it. And it's not easy. But thank you. I feel your love, and I feel your care, and I feel your wisdom. So thank you, Deb.
This is the sweetest thing. I love this so much. Thank you, Deborah, for your sweet love for Scott. Oh, I love him too. I want to invite everyone to pause the political conversation in the chat if they can. And what I'd really like to invite is to offer an appreciation of something that you've learned from the Awakening world, from any of the shows over the last 2.5 years. Like, type in something you've learned, something that a show or someone you met on a show, saw on a show that blew your mind, something that without it, you didn't know. You know, I think this is important. And, you know, Scott, and I am going to speak to it because I also run another show, a weekly show, and I just run one, and it takes it takes like 15 to 20 hours a week just to do one show with one guest a week. And it is a lot of effort and a lot of energy. And not only have you, Scott, put together 3 shows a week consistently, but you've also put on other shows. You've marketed other people's work. You've created connections. You've pushed and pulled and danced and made this like really amazing magical piece of your heart. Like this is your heart in like physical, like virtual form. And no amount of human language would ever be able to share my gratitude for you. Like, you have literally taken me under your wing to really help my life and my career. And gratitude doesn't even cut it. I'm just going to like vibe you and scratch your head someday with like deep intention. And maybe you'll just get the download of how broken open my heart has been time and time again. And your level of commitment and work and trust and faith in this process, in creating the shows, the energy that you put in, the deep trust. You said something to me one time. I want to share this because I love this part of you. I get really anxious, y'all. I like things planned. Scott, on the other hand, has this amazing thing that he can do where he flows. I am not that person. And he's like, Trish, I just trust that it's all going to work out. And I looked at him and I was like, I totally, we were sitting in the car and I was like, I don't even know how to deal with that. And I thought about it and I've thought about it. I know that's not your exact languaging, but I was like, shit. And I thought about it and I thought about it and I still think about it all the time. It's like, wow, the level of trust in the life, the level of trust in compassion in your heart, in the universe, in other people is wildly profound. So Scott, I love you. And I am honestly grateful that you're going to take some time to enjoy the summer. I hope you get a ton of hugs and I hope you go dancing and I hope that people just scratch your head and kiss you on the cheek and your dog is loved up. And I hope that you are welcomed with wild, loving abundance and hugs and with just wild open arms wherever you go. I know that you will.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I've reached my limit.
There's a nice shout out to Deborah Giusti in the chat too.
Yes, a big shout out to Deborah for all she did during the Saturday Night Live time. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it blew her out. She blew out before I did. She blew out around last November. I was able to go a little bit longer. But thank you. And I've reached my limit of how much I can take in, to be honest. But I did take in everything Trish said. I took it.
No, you haven't.
No, I have. I've taken it
Scott,
in.
let us fill you up.
No, you know what? Let's everybody right now send Scott some love and healing. Just right now, just take a moment. If you're on camera, raise your hands up because you can feel it going out your hands. And surrounding Scott in just a blanket of love. Scott, just breathe. Just breathe it in. We love you, and we are not the only ones. We are just a fraction of your global peace tribe that loves you. Yeah. So just know that you can always take in a little more love. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm now going to go off camera.
Okay.
But thank you. I did take that in, and there's some beautiful comments in the chat box that I'd love for you to share that are answering the question that Trish asked. Some really beautiful, beautiful ways that people have learned.
Excellent grace. Yes. Yes.
I really just want to say thank you to everyone who wrote in the chat, because this is going to take us very, very far. And I love that. So one person, Mark, says, I like the Friday night shows the most. Fewer guests and deeper conversations. I think that having dedicated, compassionate communicators in the chat can help moderate the occasional stressful interactions. Fewer guests and deeper dives is what I like most. I applaud you taking self-care, Scott. You deserve it. We love you. Thank you, Susanna, and I fully agree. The first law of good health and good work is to take care of ourselves. Otherwise, we get bogged down in tiredness and put forth mediocre work. Kristin's music, yes. Thank you for putting in what you loved about the shows and really what shows inspired you. What shows inspired you? What shows touched you deeply? Mark also writes, I've learned compassionate communication through the physical example of Scott Catamas. When I start to boil over something, I actually do ask myself, what would Scott do? I really mean that. That's precious.
That's really sweet. I'm also noticing that several people are talking about just feeling safe to express themselves, that a lot of people are saying that coming here has been a place where they can express themselves and feel safe and not be judged. And yeah, that's really important. And that's why it's really important in the chat box, to express our thoughts and feelings, but not to correct other people. And sometimes there's certain people that feel the need to correct languaging or correct and say, well, you should do this, or we should do it this way, or this is the way it should be. And that's not what this show is about. This show is about listening to each other, respecting each other's opinions, and not correcting each other. We're not here to fix anybody. We're not here to correct anybody. We're here to listen and to learn. And Trish and I choose people like Deborah Moldow that we respect, who are wise, whether they are 30 or 40 or 50 or whatever. We choose people who are sharing their wisdom, sharing their medicine, sharing their perspective. And I'm proud of all the guests that we've had and the amazing people that have been on this show.
It's your open heart, Scott. It's your open heart that holds the center, and as well as your expertise with nonviolent communication, because you are the one who makes this a safe space, who makes it a space where people can be authentic in their sharing and know that they will be heard. They will be deeply heard and appreciated, whether they're agreed with or not. Mm-hmm. And so you are setting an example. And I love that Roger said, I behold the Christ spirit in you. Mm-hmm. This is a place where you're safe to say, I see the Christ in you.
Right.
That in itself is a beautiful thing.
Mm. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Deborah. And people are mentioning some of their favorite, and I just want to read some of these because it's true. I love all of these people. Chief Phil, who we just had last Sunday. The Sonic Butterfly, isn't she wonderful? Danny Sheehan, Nina Grae, the TwinRay, and Paul Draper. Noel, you did a great job. Like, what a wonderful combination. A magician, a musician, an activist, the TwinRay. Yeah, that's a wonderful combination of people that you put in there. Thank you.
Scott, I'm curious to hear a couple of your top people. And I also have some.
Are you asking?
Like memorable shows? Yeah,
memorable shows.
Both of you. I'm asking for what are some of your memorable shows, like things that left you like, holy wow.
Well, definitely Rev Brig Feltus and the racism work. I would say that probably my biggest aha over the last year, and it's so much because of your work, Trish, has been really beginning to grasp the depth of colonization and white male privilege and how inherently systematic the systematic racism in our culture. And so appreciating Bridge and Sharif, who talk about it without judgment. They aren't coming from that, I don't know how to say it, that angry black place, which just creates more polarization. They're coming from a wise, this is the truth place. This is what is place, and we have to face it. And they do it with so much love and so much compassion without pulling punches, but without being in angry victim mode either. So that, I would say, is probably what comes to my mind. How about you, Deborah?
Yeah, those shows were pretty amazing.
I think it's kind of tough to ask you your favorite shows, like asking about your favorite children.
Yeah, it's true.
Every show that I've seen has something special about it. So, that's what I've appreciated the most. And I have appreciated particularly seeing members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle that I'm director of come on and be able to be so much more personal than they normally are. You had a show recently that featured Neil Donald Walsh and Gary Zukov, two members of our circle. And I was particularly struck by Neil because he's able to say something fresh and humble and personal. I was kind of expecting to hear things I've heard before from him, and no, he was really speaking on a different level. And I think that was the same with Gary as well in that show, that you create an atmosphere that allows people to communicate not from their book covers, but from who they really are.
Oh, thank you. I want you to know that we actually have a playlist now, which I created, which is called Shows That Feature Members of the Evolutionary Leaders Network.
No way!
So if you go to our YouTube channel, I just screenshot it. So if you go to the channel, we have many playlists, and one of the playlists is called Shows That Feature Members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and Network. And that's where you'll see all the shows. And there are a lot of your friends. There's John Perkins, Kurt Johnson, you, the shows with Julie Kroll, Jennifer Hill, and it goes on and on and on and on.
Well, definitely send.
So this is, while we are on hiatus, and I'll put this in the chat box, here is the link to all the shows that are evolutionary leader shows. Did we lose Deborah?
I think so.
Yes,
But
I'm loading now, so coming back.
So I'd love to share a few of my favorite shows.
Please send me the link to that list, and I'll put it in the Edge, the newsletter of the Edge.
You got it. And I'm actually going to make a tiny URL. And Trish, you're going to share with us your favorite moments and shows.
Well, of course, the deconstructing systems of harm shows. We've had a lot of those. And I remember when you made the commitment to Pato and Antoinette that you'd center people of color in your shows. And that was a really powerful moment for me. I think it was just really, really beautiful. And the way that you have shown up in that has also been just really deeply loving, Scott. So thank you for keeping your word there. Claire Dubois was a powerful show on environmental activism. Are you there?
Yes.
Am I here? Oh, okay. Sorry. So I'm like actually on the screen right now, which it hasn't happened all night for me because I'm on my phone. That was a really, really powerful show. The trans show that we did with one of my I felt starstruck, which I don't actually really have that often. And that was a really wonderful show about how to show up as a parent, how to show up as an ally. I thought that was incredible. We had Max Pearl and Jack Knoxville, and oh my God, how am I losing his name? He was the guy. A very famous trans man in the larger community who's doing a lot of really amazing harm reduction work. You have had we've had a couple of shows with some really hard topics, especially around domestic violence, drug addiction, and the parental shows, the ones where it was like parental alienation. Those shows deeply touched me, where I was like, I went home and cried. because those people, what they're committed to in the world and how they're bringing voice to the voiceless was amazing. And how could we not love April, Elizabeth April? I mean, for real though, like she's amazing. How could we not love Elizabeth April? Gosh, who else? Oh, can you tell the man who channels? What is the man's name who channels the?
Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
That was I was like, huh. I felt that show in my spiritual skeleton. Like I felt an upgrade, like a download. You know what I mean? Like it was just really, really powerful. I loved the show with Lucian.
Mm-hmm.
Lucian just really loved his work. Oh my God, that group of scientists, they were talking about, this would be easier if my brain worked a little bit better. Remember the group of scientists who were really studying
the work with Qualia, when we had all the scientists from Qualia and Neurohacker.
Nope. It was actually slightly recently, where they were studying not singularity, but they were studying the way that the different dimensions, it's called. There's a science for this.
Quantum physics? Gosh, yes. Yeah.
They were remembering. Oh, wow.
Was it Lamar?
Like there was a group of quantum physicists
Right.
that were so just loving and so like deeply just direct and profound and yeah. I also really loved having Bruce Lyon on. That was also a really fabulous show. But the trans show was really one of my favorites with Adian Dowling. Like, wow. Scott, I really want to thank you again for being a yes to the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
I really see you loving me.
I do. And Trish, I love partnering with you. And I think there is something about the millennial baby boomer connection that keeps things alive, keeps us, keeps me on my toes. And it's been, I love co-hosting with you, and definitely want to continue co-hosting with you, my love. Absolutely. And I love co-hosting with you, Reverend Deb. What the shows that we've done together. We've done a couple of the shows together, Sacred Sundays, and on Saturday night, we've done a couple Saturday night editions now. That's been one of the things that's been fun for me is co-hosting. I love co-hosting with Kristin Hoffmann. She's really fun to co-host with. And
she's my soul daughter.
Oh, everybody's. Really? I mean, it's like everybody. She's everybody's
Really?
soul daughter, soul sister. Every day she's been calling and checking in on me to make sure that I'm taking my chicken soup, and she's been giving me like long downloads of what I should be doing and not be doing. And she calls herself Mama Hoffman. So, yeah.
Oh,
Such a sweetheart and such a stupendous talent.
I don't know if I've ever met anybody that talented who's that kind. The combination of extreme kindness and extreme talent and extreme perfectionism. She's a perfectionist. But when she points out things to me that I need to do better or we could do differently, and she's always right, and I never feel judged. I never feel shamed. I never feel embarrassed. She does it with such love and such. It's an incredibly unique talent that woman has. Yeah.
She's so special, and I'm glad that so many people have mentioned her in the chat. It's one of the guests that they've so appreciated on the
And I
show.
want to encourage everybody. She and Cornflower on Tuesday did an amazing concert as
That
part of
was
the World
something.
Unity Week show, World Unity Week. And if you didn't see it, it's easy. You can find it on YouTube. Send me a private message on Facebook, and I'll send you the link. Amazing. Cornflower and Kristin together are just dynamite, and they were just really. It was on the summer solstice, June 21st, the concert of fire. So Symphony of Fire, Symphony of Fire. All right. Well, we are close to 9 o'clock, and I still have to take my dog out for her WALK.
Can we
And
see the dog?
Reverend Deborah, I'm so glad you joined us tonight. This was such a great treat having you with us. I love you so much.
I love you too, Scott. And when I heard that you weren't well, and also that these shows this weekend were going to be about the future of the awakening world, I just wanted to be here to support you and this beautiful community.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, everybody. I'm going to go to gallery view so we can see everybody. I will be doing a show tomorrow night, and I'll do a show on Sunday, and then we'll be taking a little bit of a break. But everybody that I see on camera, Roger, Eleanor, Kathy, Julia, Noel, Jonathan, Carol, Mark, of course, Reverend Deb, Trish. I so appreciate Suzanne, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for your comments, for your love, for your support. Come on back tomorrow night. Come on back on Sunday. Join Trish, who will be part of the Gay Pride, and hopefully we'll get our cameras to work. I love each and every one of you. Have a beautiful evening, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night and or Sunday. Take care, everybody.
Love you, Scott.
Bye.
Love
Save
you
the
all.
chat, Scott.
I'm saving the chat. I'm definitely saving the chat, and I'll
Okay.
send